Hello there, friends and listeners, and friendly listeners and listener friends. It's time for another episode of K-Ben Talks in Your Ears. This time around, I had a chance to catch up with my friend Kelsey O'Regan, who is a fanfiction author and the writer and creator of the web series Biffle. That's Bifl. There will be links in the show notes. The show notes? The show notes? Wow, pronunciation. There will be links in the notes to this show for the web series and all of their assorted places to find them on the internet. This was a fun time that I had. It was, as I always say, a cool conversation, and I liked it. It was good. It was good to talk to a friend I haven't talked to in a good while. So again, this was another one of those like two people catching up on the microphone. So I hope you like it. And if you don't like it, I can't do anything about it. It's already done. It's going out there. See ya. And also, I don't know what the hell I was thinking about the time thing. I was like 6 o'clock. Then I was like, oh no, that's not what's happening at all. So
I was like, whenever I'm dealing with a West Coast person, I always have to make the choice of if I tell that to them in my time or I take the extra step and do it in your time. And I always choose to I tend to go with their time because it makes me feel like that is just like whoever's the boss, like whoever's the entity that I'm working with, I might as well like come to their time zone instead of making them work with my time zone.
mm-hmm.
And so I was like, but I just did math though. Like why? And so I appreciated that when I got your invite, my name had like 17 Y's in it.
Yes.
That's how I feel right now. So
that's how I was like, because I was like taking a bath. I was like, just like, and then I like got out and I was like, oh, this is happening now. I need to hurry up.
I mean, if there's any like at this point, like especially justified excuse for just like not hopping on Zoom, it is a bath. So
it's true. I was like, because it's like it's the temperature dropped out here like on Friday. It went from being like 80 degrees during the day to being like 50 degrees during the day, which like is just a drastic drop. So, and it's been like stormy and rainy, and I was like, I'm cold in my house. I need to go like sit in hot water.
Mid 70s for like the last 4 days over here. So like, walking to get coffee on Saturday morning, I was in flip-flops, and then I went to all my celebrations in shorts and a t-shirt, and I was like, we're all gonna die when the earth explodes. Like, this is super fun right now specifically.
Yeah, the shift is weird, and then probably in 2 weeks is gonna flip the other direction, and then you'll be buried in snow, and we'll have like barbecues, and yeah,
So
that's how it goes.
mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for agreeing to be on this podcast project of mine. This has been, well, it's weird because like you're the first person I'm talking to after the election results. So everything up till now has been like, what is art? What does it mean? What are we doing? What is it? And now I'm kind of like, oh, it might just be fun. Maybe we're just making things for fun. I don't know anymore.
Less terrible now.
I mean, yes. Well, depending on who you are, I guess,
right.
It might still be very, very terrible. But yeah, it is like, but that's part of what these conversations are, is like, how has 2020 affected the work you're doing? Has it affected it? Are you like, I mean, so we'll get into all that, but to start, like, you are a writer. That's why you're here. And why don't you can lay out what you've been working on, what you're doing, what's been going on. What have you been doing since March? What were you doing before? I'm going to list out 20 questions, and then you have to remember them all. And then, but basically, in short, what is it you do in general? And then has any of that changed, like before and after the big COVID marker in March?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer all those, but I'm not gonna repeat the question. So everybody else is like it's on the listeners to like remember
That's
what
right.
actually I'm answering in any given
People
moment.
should take notes during podcasts. It's important.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'm a writer, and like 70% of the time, 60 to 70% of the time, it's usually just fan fiction. And I say just, even though it's not just fan fiction, because like we all love fan fiction, we all need it, and it's like so brilliant for finding voices and things, and like I love it. And I think all the time I'm in like a Brokeback Mountain kind of situation, and in that like I wish I knew how to quit fan fiction. Like I say that to it, I like whisper that to my fan fiction screen constantly, like wish I knew how to quit you. I'm never going to. It's fine. But yeah, I like doing that a lot. I did some Warrior Nun. I did some Teenage Bounty Hunters, and I did some Atypical, and that was great. And because I had so much time at the beginning of the pandemic, when things were actually shut down for like a hot second. There's some books in there. So there's that, and then the other like chunk of writing and things when things are actually going on is Biffle, because I've, as Darren mentioned in the talk back from last week, I've actually been working on the season 2 script for most, if not all, of quarantine. So it's been really interesting, like just working on that, just because, you know, I've spent so long like having already pre-written content that I was just kind of modifying to fit with production things. But this is like the first serious like new from scratch writing I've done for it, like since I first wrote it, which has been kind of wild. But it's been, I mean, it was really nice having, you know, a stay-at-home thing for a while, because I could stay at home and just write the thing. And I looked at my timestamps on my files today earlier. I wrote like 5 episodes in 2 months, and it was like the best feeling of all time. And then I went back to work full time because we suddenly got busy for no reason. And then I didn't, my writing slowed down significantly after that. So like, what's ironic for me is that even with the pandemic going on, like obviously you got to wrap your head around that part of it. But if I could just like work from home and not leave my apartment, or if, you know, we got to shut down that, you know, we're covered, if finances were not an issue, I can self-sustain for months. I'm fine. Like if I have a computer, if I have a phone, if I have an internet connection, I'm good to go. Like nothing can stop me. The hard part for me is, and the hardest part has been still having a 40-hour work week in a physical office space, when one, there's a pandemic happening that's been happening and getting worse, and two, when if I weren't forced to go into this office 40 hours a week, I could be doing so much writing. And it's not even like, oh, I wish I could write atypical fan fiction, just bask in, you know, Cassie for days. No, it's like, I have like a script I need to get done by like a certain day. And like, I'd really like to do that and like not have to be worrying about that all week. So like it's, and also like, in this very specific context too, like Biffle's a queer show, so like I'm not out at work, so I'm not going to mention that I write a show, because a lot of people, if they hear that it's queer, they'll assume that I'm queer, which is very correct, but like, you know, we don't want to have that conversation. And so I'm like a closeted queer person and a closeted queer writer of a queer thing all at the same time. So it's like, they know that I'm a writer, they know that I want to write things, but like they don't know that I am currently writing things. So it's like, just there's a lot of layers, and being a queer person in any context, but especially in a pandemic, is exhausting, and that's where I'm at.
And I think too, when even with the web series aside, like when the bulk of what you do is fan fiction, or the bulk of, like for me, I've been writing all through pandemic times, but it's all been fan fiction, because like that's what gets me writing every day. That's what I put all my energy into, because it keeps me doing my word counts. It's not every day, I'll be real, but like, you know, like when I'm actively doing it, that's what's happening. So, but then when it's like the family is like, so what are you working on? It's like, I'm just writing, and I, you know, it's like I'm just writing some stuff for myself, and because I don't want to get into it. Yep. If I know the person I'm talking to knows what fan fiction is, then fine, sure, I've been working on this thing. But if it's like, you know, an aunt or uncle or grandparent, I don't have any surviving grandparents, but if the ghost of my grandmother appeared and was like, what are you working on? I would be like, I'm writing for myself, just doing some stuff. And but it's not, and it's interesting because it's not something that I mean, I'm now throwing this out on a podcast that has my name on it, that's going around, and everyone, like, whatever, people will know the secret is out. It's not been a secret for a very long time. But and I talked about this on a previous episode, that like the stigma around fan fiction had a weird accent on it, and that's fan fiction. Because I'm escalating it, so it's fancier.
Yeah, you're just, I think you're manifesting what they're trying to get at, you know?
It's true.
Your body is physically like cooperating with you in this context, trying to get it across.
It is, because it understands that it needs to be respected. But the stigma has gone away over time, at least in the fact that like you can get a job as a professional writer, and people can know that you write fan fiction, and you could possibly, in a best situation, maybe get a job writing for a show that you've written fan fiction for, if it's like,
because as opposed to in spite of, you know, that's
yes, exactly.
a huge switch for us in the fit community. And I completely agree with that. Like, especially like, because I've gone from just like a strictly we're gonna write 10,000 words about these people deciding to kiss versus like here's like an actual ensemble piece that like takes place after the season finale, or like here's what it looks like if this character comes out as this thing, like, and really kind of taking it to different narrative priorities where like it's less about just like manifesting the gay shit we want to see in the world, and more about like here's legit the story I'd want to tell if I were in this writer's room. So like it does become an amazing exercise, and I've kind of learned to like boost that brand of serotonin in me, and just kind of like, give myself the space to like, yeah, I could write a set of parents if I wanted to. I could write this like, boy, what do boys talk like? I don't fucking know. Like like giving myself the space to like go beyond just the romantic like sapphic ship and like really dive into like ensemble pieces and push myself. And like it is honestly like the world's best writing exercises, because not only are you latching on to other people's tones and voices and just vibes in general, but you're able to explore your own stories, showing your originality, but then showing that you can matchy and like that's not easy. And I'm trying to like I'm working on giving myself the kudos I deserve for like not AO3 kudos, but like actual professional skill kudos. Right. Working on giving myself the kudos I deserve for being able to do that, like I think successfully. I don't know.
I just had a question form in my mind that I feel like it's a truth, and you can tell me if this feels this way for you. But now that you are writing a second season of a show, isn't it kind of like you're writing fan fiction for your own show in a way, in a weird way, because it's already established and you already know who's playing what?
What's so interesting is like I don't even know if I know the answer to that question, because like I will tell you it's bizarre to like for one, to be working among a creative team like me, Darren, Amber, and Jill. We all work together to break the stories and to figure out arcs and stuff. It is still mind-blowing to me even years later that there are 3 other individuals in this world who like are as familiar with the characters as I am, and like know how they operate, and like can make suggestions that I didn't think of myself, but I'm like, yes, you are correct, that is absolutely what would happen. I'm just like, this is the coolest thing ever. So that's one part of it, but just like it's definitely weird because like it's this very weird line as just like somebody who is used to like, I'm writing this but only because I want it to happen that way, and it's not actually going to become canon, whereas this is me doing something with something that is mine, and like here's what I want to have happen, but like it is actually going to happen this way, pending any changes or objections from the rest of my team, whatever. But it's I don't, because it like it's very similar. There's a lot of overlap with the emotions of writing fan fiction, because like who gives a fuck? This is fan fiction. I can do whatever I want, but like there are several fucks to give when it comes to like actually writing a script that's going to be made. And so it's weird because I like it's one thing, it's a certain process to match somebody else's character voices. It's a different thing to like when you've now set up character voices and you can still perceive, oh no, that's that they wouldn't say it like that, as like you have to remove this word and go this way anyway instead. So like I still have to match my own voice, and like I can recognize when I haven't matched it. So it's like this really odd thing of like things that I have learned as a fic writer, but these are my things, but they still need to be true to what it should be. Like there are rules now.
Right.
And so it's like it's bizarre. And it's like you could argue that any writer's room is just writing their own brand of fan fiction, but it just happens that it's going to be produced and become canon anyways. So like it's quite, I don't think I'll ever wrap I mean, I say this now because it's my first thing, but maybe like 10 things later, I will be like so used to it and like over the surprise of it. But where I'm sitting right now, like it is still so hard to wrap my brain around. Like, I don't feel like a god because, there's still so many opinions that matter. And like, I don't have complete, like,
right. It's collaborative. Yeah.
Yes, where everybody is on such a level playing field. And like, if I disagree with something, we'll talk it out, or if somebody else like it's definitely a very honest space. Everybody feels very free to be like, I think what you said is incorrect and here's why. Like there's lots of room to vibe and just like discuss, and it's just so nice. And I hope that everybody experiences a creative space like that at least once in their life if they do want to pursue a creative career like that. But it's great. But yeah, it's nice. Like it's nice that the decision making isn't all on my shoulders, because that is pretty draining and very intimidating. But it's just a really nice, environment that we've all created for ourselves, and I will forever be grateful for just the way things have ended up with that, and just the way we've come together. And we definitely feel like, a Biffle writing family, just because we're all, what is it in Pacific Rim, the drift, we're all very drift compatible, but it's like a 4-way drift compatible writing team. If you want to get to that level of nerdiness, we'll go with that.
Well, and there's also, once you get through that process of like the four of you agreeing on how the story moves forward, there's also then the added handoff of you and then hand that to an actor, and in their performance they could say every word the way that you wrote it, and with all the inflection that you gave it, and then still bring another thing to it that you go, oh my God, like I didn't even know that was what was happening in this scene necessarily, like as some kind of undercurrent or something. So that's always like the magical part of that process for me, is when I watch a performer take the words and the scene and the moment, and then they'll pull some other thing up that I'm like, oh, you're right, this is a scene about loneliness in the grocery store. I didn't realize that. I thought we were just buying nacho fixins for like comedy purposes, but this is a really sad scene. Like there are those moments that I think are also really cool, and which you don't, when you write fan fiction, it goes up. But actually, no, I guess I will pivot on that a little bit. There is that process with fan fiction when you write something and then someone will leave you that comment, that feedback of like, oh, I loved when this was happening, and you're like, oh, that was happening. I didn't realize that was happening, but you were so right. That is actually what was
correct thing. Yeah, exactly. Like they're like, when I, even back in the Glee days, when I would lean so hard into one thing, I'd be like, this scene is my pride and joy, and nothing will ever take it away from me. And somebody takes a minor detail, or like even from Supergirl, like I've written Supergirl fics, where somebody picked on a detail and was like, I've been through this before. This is exactly what it feels like. Thank you so much for being authentic. And I was like, that was an accident, but like we're not going to discuss that part of it. Like, oh well. But no, I like, actors make a world of difference. Both, like, it's interesting because it's kind of the reverse, because with fan fiction you see what actors do, you latch into those voices and those mannerisms, and then if they're good at it, then it's effortless to write fan fiction, because their voices are so vivid in your head, they're so clear, they're so distinct. Like, I'm like, you two just walked into a room, talk about whatever the fuck it is that you need to talk about, and then they just do it, and I'm like, great, like that's a scene, everybody go home, whatever. And then with scripting, it's actually the reverse, because I'll write something and I'll have a general idea of the tone in my head, whatever, but there's like my favorite example of this is at the end of Biffle season 1, when Jill and Taylor are in the bathtub and they're having this like back and forth thing, and I always knew that I loved that banter scene, but there's a specific line, I'm having trouble remembering exactly what it is, but I just wrote it as like a retort, right? And then, but Anisha made it sound so like mocking, like actively mocking. And now, like, and it was such a wonderful decision, because now it makes me crack up laughing literally every single time. And like, I know that certain things are funny, but like delivery can just elevate things so much. And so like, I will always be so grateful to every single individual cast member in the project for just bringing the A game every single time, because their comedic timing, their dramatic, everything, just top to bottom, is just fantastic.
Yeah, that's that's honestly, that is my favorite part about working in the film and TV and web visual medium, because it's exactly what you just described, and then it's so good, and it's satisfying, I think, very much.
Okay.
Am I here? Are we both here?
Yes.
There was like
I was talking a bunch, but you froze, and I don't know how much.
No, I heard everything. We got it all. It was like our images froze because I was like listening, and then we're good.
As long as the audio is there, because I was like, that was from the heart. I'll be so sad.
Yep. It was all good. We're all good.
Perfect.
Yeah. So have you I mean, I guess this is also jumping from season 1 to season 2 of Biffle. is already going to have some shift in it. But like with your other writing, like pre and post COVID, stay at home, pandemic, the world is dark, what's going on, wear a mask. Um, have you felt a shift in tonally what you decide to focus on? Is it kind of still the same, kind of just like fulfilling what you want out of a scene? What's working for you? What's not working for you?
Right. Well, I can think of three things that are the most recent things that I've written, and they're all very different. Like, the atypical fic that I wrote was kind of by accident, and it was just 11,000 words of like, because Bridget Lundy Payne, who plays Casey, they just made Casey queer in season 3. But then also Bridget Lundy Payne came out as non-binary and uses they them pronouns and like cut their hair, and it was wonderful, and I love them so much. And so I was like, well, and I talked to a friend about like, you know, what do we think it would look like for Casey to come out as non-binary to just continue mirroring Bridget's queerness on screen. And what was just started off as just a general conversation turned into me having like a lot of really specific ideas about it. So I was like, you know what, I guess I'll just, you know, write the thing because why not? And that turned into 11,000 words of just self-exploration and just like, you know, pushing a lot of my own experiences and fears onto them and kind of just like leaning into Casey's fictional support system and just interacting with the fears that I both do and don't have and all that stuff. So that was like a very just like intimate self-exploration setting that I wrote completely by accident, but then like fell absolutely in love with. And I was like, oh my God, can I please write for season 4 of this show? Please, please, please. Have not heard back from anybody about that. Then the second one was Warrior Nun, which son of a bitch like ended with like the most, I love you so much, but the most bullshit cliffhanger of all time. And so like in my head, I was just like, here's just like this one line of dialogue that I need to hear from this one character. And I just need you to say this one thing, and then like we can all go home. And but then I started writing it and I was like, okay, so we need to get through this battle to set up the thing. And then here you said the thing. Okay, but shit, what happens now? And I ended up writing like 7,000 words based purely off of this one sentence. And so that was kind of an accident, but that was also like I need to be affirmed and satisfied because this cliffhanger was just like the most of all time. And I can't just stay in this climactic space for like the next 2 years. Like I need more than this. And so that was kind of a more, you know, plot thing and like a shippy thing, but it was still super fun and very different because their tone and their style and like their sense of humor is so distinct and like different. And then Teenage Bounty Hunter swooped in, and that was like the week after I watched Teenage Bounty Hunters was the week that Folklore came out, and so that was just like, and I started writing that purely because it was a very satisfying cliffhanger, and I wanted to just know what was going to happen next, and so it was very just general, not really ship based, even though there is a ship included in it, but just like there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Like, what does that look like? What do the characters do now? And that was just a very just like intentional, like general cast wide exploration of what the hell is going to happen next. So like they've all been very distinct and very different and kind of still very personal, but I think a lot of it is like almost moving away from the shippiness of it all, moving away from like the need to like dive headfirst into the romance and like 20,000 words to get to hand holding, that kind of thing. And you know, there's nothing wrong with those things because we all need them. We know that they're very important to fan fiction, whatever. But I definitely feel myself moving into more of a like challenge yourself to just tell any story, challenge yourself to use an ensemble cast instead of just 2 people sitting in the room for 3 hours talking about how they're in love, like legitimate like discuss like learn something new kind of storytelling. And so like, and I think the more you open it up in that way, the more it allows you to take your very like raw emotion and find a lot more different places where you can inject it. Especially like, you know, at the beginning of quarantine, when it was an actual quarantine and there was like time to think about life and things. Like I did a lot of like just self-reflection and a lot of journaling and started therapy. So like there was a lot of stuff going on like internally for me. And then to be able to find like these mini connections and kind of depending on the show and just use that to like, you know, have really cool conversations via dialogue and like learn, you know, I learned something about me by learning something about you and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely feel myself shifting. And I'm sure it's a combination of like me growing as a professional with, you know, actual aspirations of writers' rooms, like let's see what I can do if I'm going into this as like, if you were going to present this to the showrunner, or like if I wanted to use, like, I know it's in prose form, but like if we were going to convert it to script form, like could that work? And so like kind of moving more into that mindset of the actual storytelling of it all, and very character based instead of just situational, or just like, doing a fix it or something. Like I haven't done a fix it in a very long time, minus Winona Earp, but I didn't even let it break at first. I just fixed it preemptively because that's what I do now. But yeah, it's definitely been more of just like what happens next? What would you do if you were actually in the writer's room, and just kind of putting myself into that space more as a challenge. But like fan fiction will always be fun. Like it's, at the end of the day, it's for fun. It's exclusively because I want to, and because I want that shared experience with me writing it and the people who are going to be reading it. But definitely kind of veering away from the shippiness of it all, and away from just the knee-jerk reactions or fix-its, and more of just I'm a storyteller, here's what I see happening, and here's the way I'm gonna do it. Like kind of more to prove myself almost than anything else, more to prove that I can think that way and think kind of outside the box, or more bigger picture. And it's been really cool to like see myself kind of moving in that direction too.
Yeah, and I think you've been writing for a good window of years doing all this, and I think for myself, who has also been writing for a long time, but one of the things that I've been working on in this window of time with my writing partner is taking characters who are in the context of the shows that they're on are exist for, like, they do the things they do for comedy purposes, like, so it's like doesn't make sense. An example would be like Brittany from Glee. Like, she has lines that are funny and they were written because they're ridiculous, but it's like, what happens when you take a character like that and you say, okay, what is actually going on here? Are you, honey, are you okay?
You dare to apply like real world
Yeah.
shit. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, it's been this process of walking a couple of characters through like therapy scenes, and like exploring different ways that people handle this stuff, which sounds really dry, but it's been really, really satisfying because
That's amazing. Like as somebody
yeah,
who's in therapy right now, for sure. Like
it's been, and it's something, it's really our challenge to ourselves with um, this project in particular is really flipping stuff to where it's not the same tropes that we see, or if the tropes are there because they exist in the source material, it's flipping it just in a way that's like, well, this is how I like to write anyway, but like taking the thing that everyone does and saying, you know what, I don't want to do that thing. I mean, it's also it's something as basic as like, I don't want to do coming out scenes because we've done 8 billion coming out scenes. Everyone knows what it looks like. Everyone knows everybody cries. Everybody knows someone's going to get mad. Everybody knows someone's going to be accepting. Someone's going to hug. Someone's going to leave angrily. And like, I don't care about that. So if we're going to do a quote coming out scene, let's make it about something else that's not related to any of that. And like, have it be about, I don't even have an example, but like
you coming out on this podcast as a fan fiction writer.
exactly, like I'm writing the fan fiction. um it's that kind of stuff that's like, let's take the language that we already speak, and let's say new things with it. And I think that's been a fun challenge to just kind of to do that. And the reception to that has been really positive, is people saying, I don't ever see this happening in stories like this, because people don't take the time, and also because of pandemic, um it's like I have nothing but time to kind of throw at this. Like, i'm not at I'm not physically at a workplace for 40-45 hours a week. I'm at home. Even if I'm working on anything, I'm here, like you were saying earlier, like it's easier to kind of plug into that stuff. So it's like, when you live with your writing partner, it's also very easy because we can hash stuff out story wise and talk about it. And so I've almost felt like we've been show running this fan fiction series in a way, because we are doing so much. Like, it's so, there's so much mass to it now that I'm like, okay, now what did we write back here? And then, so we've created an entire canon for ourselves that we can then reference. And I've never had an opportunity to write on the long term like that before. And the listeners can't see, I'm drawing like these lines with my hands, like a timeline. And that's been really fun and interesting, because I feel like that's it's kind of like I'm writing fan fiction for my own fan fiction in that way of like, this series now has 4 parts, and we're pushing up 700,000 words of all this stuff.
Long
And
form serialized fan fiction is like
yeah,
that phrase by itself is like ASMR to me. Like it's just the best of all time. Yeah, I feel
yeah.
that.
So it's been a brand new experience and process, and because outside of fan fiction, I write screenplays mostly for features, and if I'm doing even a series, the longest I've ever written out is like a 6-episode arc of like 12-page episodes. So that's shorter than a feature film script. So like normally you're talking about 100 pages or less of a story, and this has been diving into a much richer world of characters that already existed, and then we're adding all the therapy on top of all that, and like and yeah, so that's been fun and challenging and interesting, and you know I wish it paid because I've spent a lot of
Right?
time on
Honestly,
it.
it's been driving me like because I've been job searching for a little bit at this point just because I'm pretty tired of where I'm at and it's also driving me nuts that I've been in Chicago for 3 years now and I'm still not doing a paid writing gig for as much media as there is here. I still like have not found anything and I applied for something pretty cool and it was the first cover letter that I've ever sent where I included both my pronouns and my Hogwarts house because it's Harry Potter related. Um, Maybe I would have still mentioned being a Hufflepuff if it wasn't Harry Potter related. We just don't know. But it's actually pretty cool because with the Biffle experience, like I can spend an entire paragraph being like, I would be a hot shit like remote worker because I can Google Drive with the best of them. I'm so good at shared docs. I'm so good at Zoom calls and like Google Hangouts and like I prompt like just let me do it and pay me money, please. Like please, please, please. So it's like it's actually been really cool even if it's stressful now. I know that the experiences that I'm having between like I'm actually taking a comedy writing class right now that's like a 6-week thing with Brent Forrester and um, a lot of the things that he's saying about how writing room functions like it's almost exactly how we already operate as an indie production for this queer series and that's so cool to like hear what his advice is something that like we already do. So I'm like that's so cool that just we are already doing things the way that professionals do them. And obviously Darren is a professional director, Amber's a professional producer, like everybody already has these positions that they do. But for me having like no prior experience really of any kind minus writing stuff for myself, like to just be able to fit into this world and know that that like it's all happening the way maybe on a smaller scale, it's like to be fair, but still the fact that I'm learning the structure of how revolving door feedback works and how what it's like to have a team of people contributing to story like it I hate that it's happening under these circumstances where I still have to work full time from a completely unrelated thing, but to still be in this position where I'm learning the mechanics of a writing team and I'm sharing the responsibilities of the forming of the story and just multiple people are involved in knowing the characters and keeping track of things. Like it's very, very cool to just be in this position, even if it's unpaid and even if it's even if it's on a smaller scale, like I said, but just it's happening and this is experience and this is like a huge thing for me. And so it's very cool to just feel myself going through those motions right now, knowing that I'll be able to look back on these and pull these experiences and that it will very much echo the things that I will hopefully do kind of down the road, like as actual like professional writing positions. So I'm really looking forward to like when that shit gets going.
Is there anything, and you can answer this as loosely as you want, but outside of the series that you are working on, do you have other like original concepts of anything that you are thinking about doing? Mostly, you can just answer yes or no to that. You don't have to be like, well, let me tell you all the secrets of my sci-fi space lesbian series.
I feel like this is me and not John, right? Like
That's right. As I was thinking, it kind of sounds space personing. But do you have other things, or is like kind of all your attention on Biffle right now?
All my like attention as far as original projects is certainly on Biffle right now because I just don't have space in my brain for anything else because and again it goes back to like if I didn't have a full-time job completely unrelated to writing, perhaps there could be more space in my brain for more things, but like, there's already fan fiction that I've had in my Google Drive for like several months now that I haven't been able to work on because, Biffle's always going to take the priority. But then even like I can't not go to work. So like it becomes that thing of like, as ironic as it is, like many of my problems would be solved if we could just shut down and just deal with the like if we could just shut down, pay everybody to stay home for like 9 months, 6 months, whatever, I could write, we could all get better, everything would just be so great, and then I would never have to go to my job because I'd obviously have a new better job at that point. So like I'm just saying that literally all of my problems would be solved if we could just do a 6-month shutdown. But that's just me. What do I know? But yeah, like I'm in that space where like I would love to write more original things, and I want to, and I think that I need to, just to show myself that like you can have more people in your head than just the Chill Zone household. Like you can have more people, you can have more plot lines. You don't have to rely on fan fiction to tell your own original stories. Like get yourself out there, like figure out what else you can do. Like I really am dying to like learn what else is just chilling in the back of my head that I just haven't unlocked yet. I just haven't had the time or the space really to do that, which is really frustrating because I think that would be so much fun to just sit down and really like work my brain out. But if I'm only gonna have one creative project right now, like it's pretty cool that it's Biffle. So
yeah, it is a pretty solid, I think, out the gate starting point.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you're kind of coming into all this also at a point in time where uh there's always a space, a little pocket for kind of anything, and I mean that number one as far as like content genre, um but also I mean like runtime. Like you could write something that's 2 minutes long, you could write something that's 200 minutes long, and it's like 20 10-minute episodes. Is that 200? Whatever that is. Yeah, right. uh you can, like, there's room to kind of whatever little idea you have or huge idea you have, and this is kind of what I've been working through in this time period too, is like it used to be you had to either write a feature and get that made somehow, or you had to write a spec pilot or a spec episode to try to get not to get cast. We could get cast too, but to get hired onto a writer's room or as an assistant, or it's like short films. Like those were the spaces for people, and like those have all,
Nothing matters anymore.
yeah, like you can do what you could do. You could be like, I want to do a 5 episode run of 15-minute episodes about the Supreme Court, but also they're dancers and they live in a trailer park. Like you could do that. You could
I would
write
love that, to be
it.
honest.
That's actually my pitch. I'm going to write it down right now. It's called Supreme Park, and it's in a trailer park, and they do court cases like on Judge Judy style. I don't know, this is already too good to be giving away for free. But like literally you could pitch whatever you want, and it just depends on where you take that, if there's someone who can help you produce it, or you can produce it yourself or do whatever. And I think I've been encouraged by seeing other people from all levels kind of stepping into that space.
Embrace
And
it, yeah.
yeah, and like and that's cool, and it's fun to see. It's fun, it's inspiring to see people who like seem to have had their shit together doing one thing like on a series or something, and stepping away from that and doing their own work, like on the web or however that is, because it's kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, those of us who are kind of artists or storytellers with our own thing, we're all kind of in this same space of, we just want to put it out there so people can see
Nobody
it.
is above anything stylistically or format wise, and that's
Yeah.
that's really cool that like instead of confining yourself to like, oh, I have to be somewhere on in particular on the spectrum of what filmmaking looks like, and it's just like, no, you can just literally do whatever, just make what you want, and that's all there is to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I will also say that like because of the comedy writing class, I decided to write a Schitt's so this is the hardest for a combination of words to say. Schitt's Creek spec script. I never say it correctly the first time. It's so much harder than I expect it to be every single time. And I always just like go right into it, and then I fuck it up, and then I have to slow down and do it all over again. But Schitt's Creek spec script. My goodness. And it was so funny because the way he told us to go into it was, find something that's, not necessarily causing you pain, but just something that's frustrating you, something that's, just a difficult thing, either in your life or in the world or whatever. And I was like, election day is a pretty big thing, and so I'm writing a spec script for Schitt's Creek about what election day looks like in town. And I have it all outlined. I pitched it to my sister, who said it was great, and so Megan approved, and so that's all good. I wrote my opening scene, felt pretty good about it, and I have not touched it since because I don't have time. But I'm really excited about that. Like it's I can't decide if it feels more like an original plot or more like fan fiction, because it seems like it's exactly in the middle. Because I'm writing a thing that can be used to get a job in writing, but technically it's still based on an existing medium. So I'm like, I don't even know what that makes me. Like it still feels a lot like fan fiction, but it's not.
That's what's funny, is because that used to be the way, that's how you would do it, right? Is you would write a spec script that was like, if you want to get a job on The Simpsons, you'd have to write not The Simpsons, but because there was not I picked something that there was nothing comparable to it at the time. But like it would be like, if you want to write a Simpsons, then you'd have to write a Rick and Morty, if I guess The Simpsons is it still on? It's like 100 years old.
But like I just whatever.
But yeah, it was always like you'd write for the show, not for the show that you're trying to get. But it is, that's why I think it's funny that like for a long time fan fiction had this stigma to it, because I was like, literally you're asking people to get in the heads of characters to write spec scripts to send to you, and it's the same
all be in writers' rooms. We should be the first choice for writers' rooms,
because we've spent so much time digging into other characters. Which, by the way, to Schitt's Creek spec script, I'm the person who named a movie Probable Robot, which I can never say.
I just always say
first pass. Same. I do, or the movie. I'll just be like, the movie.
The movie I made.
But yeah, it's I'm often like, why did I do that to myself? It's a terrible idea.
Because it sort of rhymes, but not really. But just sounds
and it's just like a lot of P's and B's and but
it's P, B's, and J's.
It's P, B's, and J's. It that's my features, even the two that I finished, at least, they didn't even like one is like 74 minutes and the other one is 80 minutes with the credits. I think Prob is 64 minutes. It's really short, but like even then it was like I was just barely squeaking by on like the what do I want to say, the rules, I guess the rules, I almost said the statistics, that's not it at all, but like what the standards were for film festivals, because it was like, it has to be this long for it to be a feature, and it has to be under this to be a short, it has to be under this to
write it by accident too, so like you weren't really keeping track of like the structure of
I wrote it like
you wanted to make a thing, and so you wrote it.
Exactly, that's how my two films that I finished, I definitely just was like, one was written for Scriptorama, that was Yeti Hand, that I like was like, I'm gonna write a script to shoot this summer. That was my first feature, so just I wrote that one. That was an idea I'd had for a long time, and it went through many incarnations. But Prob Rob was like, yeah, I think I wanted to make a movie. I just moved back from New York, and I was like, I want to make a movie. And I think I went on to like Now Casting, and like I looked at some people.
Oh right, you needed to have a script to upload.
Yeah, and they were like,
I vividly remember you talking about that.
So I was like, oh, if I want to do this, I have to upload things. So I was like, I went on the casting website and I filled out the character descriptions. And then I took that and then I wrote the script. And then even when I wrote the script and then did the script of reading, I realized I never really finished Act 3. Like,
right,
but I didn't flesh it out. So like, it was a whole bizarre backwards experience. But like, we did it. We made it. I went to North Carolina to a film festival, and like, it happened. And I don't know. And I don't know how that happened, honestly, because I'm like, I watched that movie on like in like a huge, like a 900 seat beautiful movie palace, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. But there were a couple of scenes that I was like, I nailed the look here. And so it was like this weird, like bittersweet experience of being like, oh god, because like watching other stuff at this festival, I was like, there's stuff that was so good, and I didn't feel like it really met the standards, but the people who selected the films really believed in it. They loved it because it was so unlike anything else. And so it was fun, and we had a very small audience for it, but the people who came seemed to love it. And just to have that experience to like look up and see Julia Mack's face.
Like, who doesn't love Julia Mack? Like there you go.
Here's this huge, like, and then like here's this huge head of someone that she does not have an abnormally large head, but like on the screen, it was
not
big.
scale.
It was not to scale, is correct. But so like that was like just going through all of that was such a cool experience that like then informed like kind of what I'm doing now, which is like I don't I needed to learn how the hell my camera works,
Mhm.
how to actually shoot things more than just point it at it, make sure people are in focus, make sure that they're lit okay. It was like no, there's a technique to doing this and I'm going to learn what that is, and that's what I've, I keep saying that. I keep repeating myself um on these episodes, but like that's what I've been so focused on is like I have spent 20 years now writing. I've been writing for a long time, screenplays and fan fiction. So I feel like I got those pretty locked down as far as like I can always learn, I can always do more, I can always get better, but like I know what I'm doing. If you hand me like when people are like confused by screenplay structure, I'm like, what's wrong with you? It's the easiest thing in the world. I was like, there's like 4 elements, but I get it. It's like it's very different than other writing styles. But like learning about cinematography and like uh light meters and the metering and like the different like the depth of field and the bokeh and all these words that I'm like learning. I'm like, oh, that's and it's stuff that I know. I'm like, oh, I know what that looks like. I didn't know what it was called. So
Mhm.
it's just like
That's really
connecting all the little dots and everything. But
well, it's
um
funny for me because I've been a writer like my whole adult life, whatever, and I'm such a visual person. Like when I write, like I can see exactly how what facial expressions they're making, like how I'd want them to just like what the physicality of it looks like. But then when I think about like, oh well, the obvious next step is like try directing. I'm like, but that means I have to tell people what to do, and I can't just dictate a story. And we're not going to do that ever. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I just think about like my sense of anxiety and how like because I mean I'm sure a lot of directors have anxiety, like it's not uncommon, whatever, but for me personally, like I have such an easier time being in charge of a thing like writing and words, because even though they're technically are talking back to me because they're words and like I know that if they want to be a certain way they're going to tell me that, but the idea of like having to tell a person like do it this way instead, I'm just like no. There's just no way. Like I just I think like setting up the visuals would be fun, and like doing just like if I were completely just in charge of the camera maybe that would be okay, but like I just don't. I reach deep inside of me a lot just to see like do you have the capacity to like tell people how you want to how you want them to do a thing. I'm like I don't think I want to do that.
which is funny because in a way you are, but you're doing it passively through words on a page, and then
So
it's going through so many
correctly,
filters
therefore
that
avoiding all confrontation. And my therapist would have a field day with that. So that's just like the way it's like telling people what to do in the most indirect, like written word way possible, which is like so on brand for me. And I so appreciate you pointing that out. Like I'm not going to tell you how to say it, but I'm going to put like 3 parentheticals and like a long monologue for you, and then like show all these descriptors of like what your hands are doing. But yeah, do it however you want to do it. Like
and what's funny is like there are actors who want you who there are actors who will take that script and they'll do it boom 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 beat by beat exactly how it's written, and there are actors who will do that but then they'll go to you and say, but no, really, exactly how do you want this? And it's like there's all, I mean, there's just different, and there's and then there's like everything in between, like on that spectrum of like how different people do things. And like I know that if I'm performing in anything, I am truly the worst because I'm like, well, but really, what do you want? Like, what do you want me to do? Because tell me the thing you want me to do, but don't tell me exactly what you want. I want to have some room, but like, tell me a little bit, but don't tell me all of it.
and then
Like
they can't even get a word in because you're like trying to like specifically and precisely condition how you want to be
to
directed.
be directed,
And then there's me, where my only on-screen role ever has been the boom operator, and I think I performed that flawlessly. I didn't need direction; I just did it, and I nailed it, and I will never top that. So why try?
I
Like,
mean, it is solid. I saw you on that giant screen in that movie palace, and
I probably wouldn't even recognize myself anymore. Like from behind, I look completely different at this point. But
but we know it's you. We saw you. I know
yeah,
you were there. It's
yeah,
on record.
boom operator. That physical comedy that Amy Poehler would. I think I made a lot of jokes that day about how Amy Poehler was going to just like hire me to be in whatever show. It didn't even matter. But like that's how good I was doing at that like physical comedy. Like,
I mean, it was pretty solid,
silent physical comedy. Like that takes skill, right?
and it was like a video within a film. Like it
Yes.
was like we were like Inception in there,
Call that a set piece. I just learned about set pieces like last week.
like
Like
a
like a
set piece with it.
isolated comedic
Yeah,
like situation that doesn't really need context. It just, you can remove it from the thing that it's in and it still makes sense by itself.
Yes.
Brilliant. Oh my god.
Um how do you feel your focus has been? Has it been the same like this whole, I mean, pre-post pandemic and like through all this? I know that we've already covered like, I keep dropping my pen that I'm not even using. I'm just like holding it. I'm trying not to click it.
Put it on the floor though, because then what if you forget about it and it's there for like 3 days?
And
That
the
would
cats play with it and like knock it under something.
kind of gone forever.
But like, do you feel like, oh, okay, like actually, like today's a great day to ask this question because we finally got our election results. Um, do you feel like that's going to affect anything in how you're writing? I mean, it was anxiety. Were you having like more or less anxiety during 2020, the worst year of all time? Because I know for me as someone who already has anxiety, it's kind of like it was pretty much baseline, and I was just like, I don't know, I do feel like my body itself was kind of like tensing up in ways that I was like, why do I hurt? I'm just sitting at home.
Like, why is there pain? Like more pain than usual.
But like I feel like my baseline was pretty average, whereas other people who aren't normally on that anxiety scale were like really having a hard time. So do you
They're
feel like it's
fine,
been
what's happening? Yeah, it's been really interesting because sometimes it's helpful and I can use it. Like, there was a day like a few weeks ago where I was feeling really overwhelmed and really stretched thin, and there happened to be just this moment that I was able to write and really lean into that and like embody those emotions and transfer them to the different contexts and just fully hand them over to a different character. And it felt so good, and that scene came out effortlessly and I felt so good about it. But then like what happens if you still feel that way and there's no more sad scenes to write? Like you can't just like invent something sad to put down. And like sometimes it works out perfectly where like there's a show that you're watching gives you a perfect pocket of emotion to work with and you can just throw up in that. But there's such a fine line between like I am feeling this way, but I also have the energy to do something about it versus like I feel this way and I'm so full of just like bullshit that like I can't move right now. So like it's that really difficult situation of um and both time and place, because like if I'm at work feeling that way I can't really do anything because like I regularly open up Google Docs. Like I wrote most of the first chapter of my Teenage Bounty Hunters fic at work because like nobody looks at my screen, so like I'm just gonna do what I gotta do and like, whatever. I'm a paid writer, didn't you know? But then like if I can't, there's only so much you can do when you're in public or when you don't have script writing software on the computer. And so like inspiration will hit me, but then I won't be able to use it and I'll just be like sitting there feeling all the things and can't really do anything about it. But sometimes it's hard. Like this whole week I got nothing done. I just sat in my apartment and watched CNN for like 48 consecutive hours. But then what was really hard was that I just kept expecting like as soon as they get the results, I will go back to being productive and it'll be switch it, no problem. But then like obviously yesterday was just all joy and celebration and everybody was like feeling the highest highs. And then I woke up this morning and like the celebration, like at least the public celebration is kind of over. Everything's a lot more Twitter confined and I wasn't talking to as many people about it. And like not that the joy was gone, but just it wasn't quite as like all encompassing.
mm-hmm.
And like I found myself feeling really sad and just like drained, and I was like, oh god, I have a full week of work ahead of me starting tomorrow, so like I just have this like blank day where I don't actually know what to do with myself because like I've been in this really incredibly high intensity headspace for like 4 days. And even though it ended well, like my body is probably still processing all of that shit. So like, and my brain is like, are you kidding me? We need to like fucking relax like for like a bit. If we could, that would be so wonderful. So it's like I think I sometimes forget how like whether it's a good emotion or a bad emotion or somewhere in the middle, like it's all kind of in a level of intensity. So like if something is just overwhelming or like all encompassing, that makes it a lot harder to do something about it or to convert it into like a productive thing, as opposed to like if you're just kind of frozen in time or you just need to not do anything for that moment to deal with it. But and it's hard because like I would love to be able to just always turn my emotions into words, into writing, into scenes, and be able to always use that and have it at my disposal all the time. But I just don't have time. And that's what sucks, is like I know what my brain wants to do. And I know what I would love to do if I just didn't have to get on the bus and go downtown. But I can't. And so like that's the most frustrating, is like I would love to see, you know, what my focus does when I have a week of uninterrupted just creative time. But you know, if I get home, if I leave at 8 a.m. and come back at 7 p.m., I have to eat dinner, I have to shower. Like there's only so much time in the day. So like that's what's the hardest part for me right now, I think, is just I don't even have the chance kind of to determine my level of focus, because I just have to like basically force myself to be in that headspace like when I have the time, and you know, make weekends count and make evenings count and whatever. So like yeah, it's just very frustrating to just not really be in control of anything at all. I was gonna like have a specific thing to say, but then I was like, no, we're it's way more grander scale than whatever you were going for.
Yeah, no, but it makes sense too. When I lived in New York, all I wrote was fan fiction. I didn't write anything original because I didn't have the capacity to do it, because outside of pandemic and the last 4 years, just New York City life,
A
like
lot.
the public transit, the everything, walking down the street, there's so much stimulation all the time that like, and I didn't know that I had the 3 different kinds of anxieties that I do. Like I've discovered that later. So like, it was not even realizing that like I was constantly like at this level, this like peak level of tension.
Mm-hmm.
And until I finally moved back to California, and I was like, oh God, my whole body was just like, oh, you don't have to worry about a lot of this stuff. But it is that kind of thing that when you live in a city, that you like any of the major cities where you're relying on public transportation, all that stuff, it is like you may work from 9 to 5, but you're 7 to 7 is like you're getting to work, whatever is going on, getting home, stop at the store,
There's so much more involved than just the 9 hours that you're physically
yeah.
there. Like even like I don't really consider, you know, like I woke up this morning, I'm like, no, I'm already back to my work week, because I'm going to spend all day today mentally preparing for
Mm-hmm.
what's tomorrow. And then, you know, you get home and you have to plan out your evening so that you know what you're doing the next morning. And like, it doesn't stop. And I think people don't get enough credit for just how much time is taken up and occupied by having a full-time job that's not remote, because it really does, like you have to, there's so much mental labor that goes into having a job that's not that has a commute and you know whatever, and it really does suck. And like that was what was so funny about, like, you know, I loved the premise of this whole podcast of, you know, how do you creative during a pandemic. I'm like, how do you creative when you still have a full-time on-site job during a pandemic specifically? That's the spin-off episode I need right now.
Yeah, it's also different, I think, from place to place too, because I feel like, again, outside of pandemic, like in California, especially the LA area, it's like, yes, there are commutes, but you're in your car and you're by yourself. So it's a different, for me at least, as an introverted person, being alone in my car, yeah, the traffic is going to be a pain in the ass, but like I'm by myself. So I can think about like
Yeah.
story concepts or whatever I want to do, or listen to a podcast. I mean, I can listen to podcasts on the train too, but it is a very different experience than having to load up your backpack before you go to work to like, catch the subway, to catch the bus, to get to whatever. And then, yeah, you load all that on top of now. And honestly, though, for me, early pandemic stay at home time, I was at home not having anything to do. Like I didn't have to do anything for work. I didn't have to do, like and that's when I produced the least amount of stuff. And I was like, oh God, like, but that's actually when we started doing the fan fiction stuff, because it was like, I need something to do, because I can't be producing nothing. So let me at least work on something. And then we both started working on it, and it was like it's become this like symbiotic back and forth, which has been helpful, because when you write with a partner, like there's a person to nudge the story forward if you get stuck, and it's like
so hard to write in a vacuum, or like to even generate ideas in a vacuum. Like even just texting somebody like, I have this idea, what do you think would that person would do? And they say one thing, and I'm like, I have the whole rest of the story. Thank you so much for providing like just all of that. But yeah, it's like, and I will say too, at the beginning of the pandemic, when things were still brand new, it was really hard at that point to be creative, even when I was stay at home, and even, you know, when I did have the time. That very first initial adjustment, when I was like, I was very like in my head about it, because I was like, what is life even going to look like going forward? Like what is my job going to look like? I feel like everything that I've taken for granted, as far as every stable piece of my life that I've taken for granted for the past couple of years, I feel like everything is about to change, and nothing is going to remain the way it is going forward. And so when I was in that space and processing all of that, I don't think I wrote anything, because I was like, I don't even know what the fuck is going on. I feel like everything in my life is about to fundamentally change forever, and I don't know what to do about it. And that was terrifying. And then once I realized, oh, capitalism will remain forever and ever at the end, like, I was like, you know what, let's just go back to writing now. Like, false alarm.
Well,
it's all good.
it is too, when you're writing for a visual medium, you have to also make the decision of, like, I guess it doesn't matter what medium it is, but like particularly for something on screen, that like, are you going to tell stories about what things were like before this? Or are you going to start to incorporate ways of life now into, like, what universe does that world live in?
So many more
And
choices now, like, that you
yeah,
have to make, and not just like fun choices, but like literally logistical choices. Like, I've been seeing ads for like All Rise, where like they're wearing cloth masks and there's like random plexiglass walls. I'm like, I feel like you're not even gonna acknowledge it, and you're just gonna roll with it and just like, I don't even know, because I'm like, what are you supposed to do? Like, are you supposed to? But it just, watching the promo, I don't think I even had sound on, but one, like the actors were sitting across the room from each other, and there was like the plastic walls, and yeah, everybody's wearing a mask, and I was like, I don't even know. Like, I want to watch this one episode that I don't have any context for, just to like see like how it goes down, because I really think it would be amazing if you just did all this and just didn't acknowledge even one piece of it and just like rolled with it. Like, I think it'll be interesting to see what decisions people make and stuff. I don't really want to write about pandemic shit, because like I'm already living it and probably will live it for the next few years, and I'm just like so over it. So like, escapism. Did you see that ad for that movie with KJ Appa and other girl, and the like the Michael Bay thing?
no.
Oh my god, he wrote a thriller that takes place in like 2024 or something, and everything has gotten a million times worse. It's on like the fourth strain of COVID, and
Oh, geez.
there's a mandatory stay-at-home order, except these two heteros are in love and must go see each other, and neither of them are wearing masks, and like the police are like up their butts, and like, so it's a thriller where things are like 100 times worse than they already are. And there's also like, so you have, like, you take real life, you make it 10 times worse, and you also then have the audacity to take a step further and make it a heterosexual love story. I'm like, who is this for, Michael Bay? Like,
Also, like, that movie's probably going to come out in 2024, and like the world is not going to, it's not going to look like any, because that's the issue for me, is like figuring out, like, okay, what is the longevity of what we have? What does it look like right now? Like, I can see masks being a thing that's probably going to hold on for a while, but like, what do I write about in this interim period? Because if it's a 6-month window of time where we've lived a certain way, and then stuff shifts again, it's like, I'm going to have this thing that exists in this weird little pocket.
a multicam sitcom that takes place exclusively in a surgical room.
So
Boom.
no matter what's happening, it'll
Everybody has a
be.
mask, everybody has PPE at all times, and it's just a multicam that takes place only in that room.
Although I like your idea of just all the safeguards are in place, but no one's acknowledging it, and it's just like business as usual.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think. Oh yeah, I don't know. So you have to make decisions about, like,
Yeah.
what is this, and do I want to pretend like it's not going on? And like, if you're doing a show, like I would say probably like the Goldbergs, that takes place in the 80s, like, you, of course you have the option, you have the opportunity to just ignore it and just make sure that your set is safe. But like, I don't know anything current. Like, I don't know what Law and Order SVU is going to look like this year.
With any of the three Chicago shows, like, because they've been showing promos for the Chicago shows and like coming back and whatever, and I don't see like, and like CBS especially have shown like, you know, behind the scenes clips of actors wearing masks, but I don't see any of the in scene stuff, like in character things. And like, I've seen pictures of the Supergirl set with people wearing masks, but again, I don't know what's just like between takes versus what is actually in character. And like, I don't know, how meta do you want to get in any given scene, and like, do you want to just take one episode to adjust, or do, like, I just don't know. I'm so glad that I don't have to make those decisions professionally right now, because it sounds exhausting.
Also, what a great opportunity for I mean, like, a show like Supergirl, where like any of the Soup's characters, no longer do you have to worry about the glasses determining whether or not someone could recognize someone else. It could just be the mask. Are you, like, because you don't know what people look like without their mask on. I mean, like, are you the same? Like, I wonder if that's like a concern, is now they're like, my actors, maybe that's part of it, is like the fate, because you're an actor, your face is your business, right? So like maybe that's why I'm wondering if shows are going to lean away from masks. Now I'm really thinking about this.
I want to make like a Supergirl joke now about how like obviously Lena now knows that Kara is Supergirl, but what if Kara adds a mask to her like costume and Lena's like, wait, now I don't know what I think. Like I don't
Who
know
are
anything
you?
anymore. Are you sure?
Can you put the glasses on and off again? I don't know.
Right, like we literally romantically broke up over this, but like now I'm not so sure. Like I want to see it. I'll write that fic like tonight and post it tonight, and everybody will love it, and it'll get 800 comments.
Oh, I look forward to it. Speaking of, if people want to find your work on the internet, where do they go?
So my AO3 is Kelsey O because I decided to remain fandom neutral. So yeah, there's that, and then my Twitter is at Gone Away a While, and I tweet about lots of things on there. And you can also, I think, Biffle Series is the Twitter handle for the Biffle Twitter. But you can just go to Biffle the series. Let me triple check that because I don't want to get that wrong because that has all the things in it.
Well, and I'll put the links in the show notes too. So I'll make sure.
Biffle.series.com has all the socials on it, so you can go in there, and you can also search it on YouTube, on Reverie TV. But mostly, I am Gone Away a While on Twitter and Instagram, but then I'm Kelsey O on AO3, so you can read all the incomplete fan fictions that I've posted this year that I have not had time to finish.
Listen, if anyone's not going to judge about incomplete fan fictions, it's me. I understand.
We're all in this together.
It's very true. Well, Kelsey, I want to thank you for your time and for chatting about all this stuff, and it's good to see your face.
They're like some amount of years reunion.
I know.
That's crazy. But no, it was so good to see you and talk to you about writing and pandemics and shit.
Well, that's, that's.
And we're like matching too. Like this is so great.
I mean, I'm wearing my New Beverly Cinema Pride shirt. I'm so happy about it.
I'm wearing my Gentle Them shirt.
Best t-shirts in the business, in the podcasting business. I don't know what's happening, but all right. Thank you so much. And that's the end of this. I think this is the awkward part where I try to figure out how to close the chat. It's like real slow. If this were a movie, it would be me. Like you'd see that it would zoom in on the mouse, little arrow. And then
the little the really exaggerated like clicking sound that doesn't sound like anything that's actually a thing.
And I would be typing something and narrating and being like typing, saying what I'm typing.
Clickety, clickety, clackety, like
and then
and
then I'll go boo-doo,
like searching that movie, except like really, really trivial and not nearly as exciting.
It's just like it. All right. Thank you so much. See you later.